All right, welcome back to another episode of the Psychopedia podcast. I am your co-host, Hank Sinatra, here with my primped and proper co-host.
Investigator Slater.
She was just primping.
Yes, sir.
Big primping, spending cheese.
We are on YouTube, so, I can't just totally roll out of bed and show up.
That's right, yeah. She used to look like shit.
Nice.
Audio only, oh my God. Welcome back to Psychopedia.
My favorite place in the world to be.
It really is. I feel like a different person right now.
I hate when we go days without recording.
Days? How about
minutes?
weeks?
Hours? Don't get me started.
Yeah. Schedule's a little fucked up right now. You must stick around until the big reveal, okay? So if you love us and you're not getting enough of what you need, go over to patreon.com/psychopediapod. We have weekly unhinged episodes where we revisit a case, whatever. I can't speak.
And welcome to my life.
It doesn't matter. Monthly Tankopedia, monthly Slaterpedia, which are both bonus true crime episodes that are not public. Running playlists or running lists of all the books, movies, and songs that we mention, a group chat, and
mostly
a monthly book club where we Zoom with all the people.
Yes.
And it's incredible.
Yes, it is.
Right? So, now it's time. It's time to do what needs to be done.
What?
Okay.
You always scare me. I don't like not knowing things. I'm a very research prepared individual.
Prepared?
Yes, I said that on purpose.
Learned doctors.
Exactly.
I'm going to read off some Patreon names.
Okay.
Okay. Kristen Leahy, Mel Panzetta, Freudenfreud.
Nice.
Which is very good.
Very good.
Schadenfreude, but Freudenfreud.
Love it.
Very good. Jolly Bonnet.
Amazing.
New Bonnet Who Dis. Freaking the Bonnet.
Oh my God, this is a big reveal.
Wait till he gets a glimpse of me in my jolly old bonnet. He's certainly going to want to pull my knickers off.
Oh my God. Everybody needs to go over to YouTube right now.
Oh, that's right. People are listening on audio. No, you have to go over to...
Even if you go back to complete the episode audio, please just go over to YouTube to see what I'm looking at right now. It's worth it.
I didn't look enough like a baby already.
You're a cross between Chef Boyardee and an oversized man baby.
Yeah. Okay.
Chef Boyard baby. I don't know.
Boyard baby. Chef Baby D.
Yeah.
I almost got a pacifier for the bit, but then I was like, that's not
that's not what's happening. No. You also kind of look like Ratatouille. There's a lot happening.
It's a lot happening. It's a fucking big bonnet. I Amazoned giant bonnet.
You found one to fit your head, no less.
Yeah, well, it's pretty spacious.
Yeah, it is.
I think this was for...
so let me look at it for a moment. Give me a second to take this site in.
Okay.
Again, as I said... During the original recording of the Jack the Ripper episode, in which we first referenced the Jolly Bonnet,
I get to load up me in my jolly old bonnet.
Right. Well, here's what I'm seeing. I'm seeing a framing of the face. I'm seeing an accentuation of the eyes. And I think for a time when everything else was very covered and conservative, that was the sexy thing, was the face. And now that you're making love to the camera with your face.
You know what? There was no ankle showing, no wrists, no cleavage,
That's exactly what
butts.
I'm saying.
The only skin you saw was face. That face better be framed the fuck out.
You had to work it.
All right, so a bonnet is probably a great tool.
I'm actually really glad that you got this.
So am I.
It confirms.
I've been wearing it since I got it.
You fucking freak.
I was going to save it for the Jack the Ripper Unhinged, but I just could not.
So glad you didn't.
Yeah, but those are real Patreon names.
They're fantastic Patreon names. You look fantastic in the bonnet. I kind of want to smush a chocolate bar all over your face.
Ew.
I heart Huckabees.
Oh,
yeah.
Huckabees.
What did you think I meant by that?
I have no idea. I actually have no clue. So now I'm going to put on something that looks like a bonnet still.
Oh, okay.
But, that's why this is my new look now. Sorry to those of you who...
So, Tank... We went on...
This is not going to work, by the way.
We went on Sunday to a car show that was hosted by the fire department where my husband volunteers.
Correct.
And you showed up wearing this hat.
Kangol washed bucket hat.
And I heard you say to firefighter Dave, this is my new look. And you know what? I think I look good in it. And if I think I look good in it, then everyone's going to think I look good in it. I bought it in 12 colors.
Yeah. Not 12, but yeah, I stocked up. That's what I do.
Yeah. I'm the same way, actually.
I got this hat on our 10-year anniversary trip to Hawaii.
So it was a little while ago.
Yeah. And I just put it on. I was like, I was getting obliterated by the sun. My eyes got sunburned. I was looking for like wraparound, blocker glasses so that I could see. I couldn't see shit.
Yeah.
I was getting just rocked by the sun. So I got a hat, some sunglasses, and this was the hat. Hats never fit me. And this one fits not only around my head, but it's like pretty close to where it needs to be. I don't have hats that fit my head at all, ever.
Yeah, I don't get that. They make things for large people.
Yeah, but it's not, either it's too big, which is like it's like having a size 14 shoe. Like, yeah, you can get it, but.
Or a size 4.5.
The options
if you're a lady like me.
Options are slim.
With a tiny foot.
You can get kids' shoes.
It's true. Can't get giant hats.
They don't have giant hats. All right, I got to take this off. But anyway, so here we are. We're ready to jump into another case. And from what I understand, this one is brutal.
It is. I'm sorry to say. And I have to say, we received a lot of requests for this case. So,
oh, really?
Yeah. So it's people in the true crime world will have heard of this case, most likely. Mm-hmm. I hope that I bring you information that you haven't heard before.
I'm sure you will.
I read 2 books on this case, one written by the victim and one written by the attorneys who represented the victim eventually.
Spoiler alert.
Spoiler alert, but it's okay. No, it's all right. Trust me.
She lived, which is good.
Thank God. Thank God. Because when you hear what she endured, you're not going to understand how she lived. But thank God she did. So let me start off by saying this. It's a 2-parter. Okay.
Oh.
It's a heavy hitter of a case.
Very good.
Not only were there years upon years, sadly, really fucking sadly, of brutality that we need to cover, but layers and layers of psychological, what's the word? Analysis that I want to get into.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Really, really fascinating in that sense. Really tragic overall. So,
yeah.
Let's be respectful, as we always are. And let me also issue a trigger warning, much in the way that I did before the Toy Box Killer, if you remember. I
got through that one.
You got through that one. In that case, I said I didn't think I'd properly be able to prepare you for what I'm about to give to you. And the same applies here. But I just want to give people an overarching idea of what we're talking about. So if there's any triggers, maybe, you skip this one.
Yeah.
We're going to be discussing...
Use that 15-second button.
Exactly. We're going to be discussing sexual assault, torture, domestic violence, and rape today.
The worst of the worst.
I know. But it's an absolutely extraordinary case.
Okay.
All right? So when you're ready...
Without further any fuckabees, let's get into this week's case.
You're so nervous.
No, I'm good.
You look nervous.
No, I'm good.
It's okay if you are. All right, you ready?
Yes, I am.
On Thursday, May 19th, 1977, a 20-year-old young woman named Colleen Stan set out from Eugene, Oregon to visit her friend Linda in the small town of Westwood, California. It was a crisp morning when Colleen left her Oregon home at around 11 a.m., eager to arrive in California in time to celebrate Linda's birthday. To begin her interstate journey, Colleen's roommates, Alice and Bob, dropped her off on the shoulder of Interstate 5, the massive freeway that spans from the Canadian border down to San Diego, to hitchhike the rest of the way. With her thick, wavy, dirty blonde hair cascading down her back, clad in a plaid wool Pendleton jacket, jeans, and earth shoes, Colleen embodied the quintessential 1970s hitchhiker, youthful, carefree, and adventurous, and wearing plaid. As she stood by the highway, thumbing for a ride, Colleen was filled with a mix of excitement and determination. She knew the journey would be long, but she was committed to making it to Westwood in time for Linda's birthday. Her thumb outstretched, Colleen caught 2 rides off the bat that took her closer to her destination. By 4 p.m., she had reached Red Bluff, California, which meant that she only had about 100 miles left to go. But as the sun began to sink lower in the sky, the long shadows of the encroaching evening began to cast a sense of urgency upon the situation. Colleen knew she needed to find a ride soon to avoid being stranded in the dark. She was cautious, though, even with the sense of urgency, and she was not willing to accept a ride from just anyone. For example, when a carload of men pulled over, Colleen declined to get in, instinctively wary of the danger that they may possess. She also turned down a ride from a couple who offered to bring her a short distance, as Colleen preferred to wait for someone who could drive her farther and get her closer to her final destination. The light was fading, and with it, Colleen's options. She needed to make a decision, and soon. As luck would have it, as the last rays of sunlight dipped below the horizon, a blue Dodge Colt pulled over. Inside was a young couple, a 19-year-old woman cradling a baby, and a 23-year-old man behind the wheel.
Quintessential 70s shit.
Yeah, it is.
A woman holding the baby in the front seat.
Oh, yeah.
Nothing more 70s than that.
Totally agree. Their appearance seemed harmless, even comforting. The man assured Colleen that they were heading toward Mineral, which would bring her significantly closer to Westwood. And trusting their seemingly kind offer, Colleen climbed into the car, oblivious to the fact that she was about to descend into the depths of hell itself.
It bears repeating, even though this case that we did was so long ago, where it was the hitchhiker.
Mary Vincent.
Yeah, Mary Vincent. You said in that case that the reason that people hitchhiked more back then was because people didn't have cars. It wasn't like they didn't care about themselves, or just less people had cars.
Absolutely. It was definitely just a cultural, societal thing back then. It was also just like free-spirited.
No, it was the
people,
fact that they didn't have cars.
It was mostly that people just didn't have cars as readily as they do today. But also, to your point, like, they weren't making stupid, careless decisions. It wasn't like they didn't have like a sense of self-preservation back in the 70s.
Yeah.
And here you see it with Colleen. She turned down multiple cars.
Yeah.
So the ride now with this young couple and the baby began uneventfully, but a sense of unease crept in as the couple suggested a detour to explore some nearby ice caves.
Fuck that. Stomach drops.
Yep. Colleen, wary of her long day of travel, was reluctant to stop, but what was she going to do? It was their car, their decision.
Nighttime by this, dark out.
Exactly.
By this time.
I also think she was very, very young, 20 years old. I also think you lack that self-confidence to be like, you know what? Would you mind if we just kept going? I've been on the road all day and I need to get to my friend. That takes like a level of maturity and confidence. And I think at that age especially, not that I'm victim blaming at all, but I think at that age especially.
That's just a part of the puzzle.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So the man steered the car off the main road onto a bumpy, isolated dirt path and drove for about another mile until they reached a secluded stream, far removed from any signs of civilization. As the wife stepped out of the car with the baby, the atmosphere shifted dramatically. The man, suddenly predatory, leaped into the back seat of the car and brandished a knife. He pressed the cold steel against Colleen's throat and ordered her to raise her hands above her head. Trembling with fear, Colleen complied, feeling the snap of handcuffs as they tightened around her wrists and were bound behind her back. Her heart raced as the man then blindfolded her with a piece of cloth, his voice chillingly calm as he asked, "Are you going to do what I tell you?" Ugh. Desperate to survive and hoping that her continued compliance would result in her survival, which is probably exactly what I would think, Colleen whispered a terrified yes. Then Colleen felt a leather strap encircle her head and tighten over her chin, making it impossible for her to move her jaw or open her mouth, almost like some type of external gag contraption.
Well, wired her jaw shut, basically.
Basically.
You know what I get so scared of when I hear, like, or I see in a movie somebody's with their mouth duct tape closed? What if I get congestion?
That's a real
I'm
thing.
gonna die for sure.
No.
And they're always bloody and like, how are you breathing through your nose right now?
It's a real concern. I forgot what case. I'm working on a couple of cases right now, but one of the cases was exactly that the person couldn't scream or wouldn't even try because of all the tears and snot, that she was afraid she was going to choke. Then the man tied Colleen's ankles together with rope, which now rendered her completely unable to move any part of her body or speak. But this wasn't where it ended in terms of immobilizing his victim, because suddenly the man retrieved a plywood box, roughly the size of a hat box, that was surprisingly heavy at around 20 pounds. The box was constructed with 2 layers of wood separated by a layer of insulation in between and was hinged with metal on the sides, like it had 2 latches so that it opened, meaning the box opened to encircle her head.
Oh.
Okay. There was a bottom that was split in half to reveal this carpeted interior.
Yeah.
So like that.
Yeah.
Okay. Forcing Colleen to lie down, the assailant positioned her head in the open box and sealed it with a loud, ominous click, plunging her into total and complete darkness.
Yeah.
The wife and baby now returned to the car as the man covered Colleen with her own sleeping bag that she'd been hitchhiking with. Then Colleen felt the car engine turn back on to start to accelerate. Deprived of nearly all of her senses and the ability to move, breathe, speak,
so fucking
or
scary.
cry,
Yeah.
with sweat dripping profusely down her face and her hair painfully caught in the locked box, Colleen endured an excruciating ordeal of isolation and terror. The only sensation she could feel was the weight of the infant on her body as the woman placed the baby in the back seat while the man continued to drive to the soundtrack of her own heart pounding in her ears. So they put the baby on top of her in the back seat.
What the fuck?
She knew that her journey with this terrifyingly sadistic couple was only just beginning. And as the darkness of that night closed in around her, so too did the darkness of the 7-year living nightmare she was about to endure.
Oh my God.
Yeah, let that sink in. 7 years. The story of her terrifying abduction has gone down in history as one of the most brutal, harrowing tales of captivity and torture, human depravity, and also the strength to endure. This is the case of Colleen Stan, aka the girl in the box. So, with that said, let's delve deeper into the sadistic couple at the helm of this horrifying ordeal.
Sure.
Their names were Cameron and Janice Hooker. I shit you not. Cameron Hooker was born on November 5th, 1953 in Alturas, California, and grew up in a traditional, if not wholesome, nuclear family. I was expecting a shitty childhood.
Yeah.
As one piece of his puzzle. Not true.
Yeah.
His upbringing was marked by a stable home environment devoid of abuse, violence, or neglect. His parents, Harold and Lorena Hooker, were modest individuals who frequently relocated every 2 to 3 years in search of better job prospects to improve their family's comfort. So that's sort of the only thing you can kind of look at to say, all right, there was instability there. Harold worked in construction and sawmills, while Lorena primarily focused on raising Cameron and his younger brother Dexter. Although the constant moving made it challenging to establish lasting roots and a secure foundation, Cameron mostly kept to himself during his childhood anyway. Nevertheless, he did have a playful side to himself too, and he would often entertain his peers and do silly things to make them laugh. So it wasn't like he was this total recluse or anything like that.
Yeah.
In 1969, the Hooker family purchased a plot of land and relocated to a mobile home south of Red Bluff, California. And at 16, Cameron, with his thick glasses, towering height, and gawky demeanor, was an outsider at Red Bluff High School, consigned to the quote-unquote quad squad, which was the name given to the group of social outcasts. Yeah, high school sucks for a lot of people.
Yeah.
Academically average and disinterested in sports and clubs, Cameron found solace in shop class. Here, amid the hum of machines and the scent of metal and sawdust, he flourished as he mastered the art of building intricate mechanisms. His workshop became a realm of innovation, where each new project was a challenging puzzle and every tool an extension of his inventive and deeply fucked up imagination. In the workshop, Cameron would spend hours fantasizing about the various ways in which he could wield absolute power over the helpless and frightened subjects of his twisted mind's eye. Typically, the subjects of these disturbing fantasies were naked, bound, and frightened women with blonde hair. Images that were plucked right out of the pornography that he started to buy, which featured naked, bound, and blonde women in leather and handcuffs being harmed by whips and chains.
And he was doing what with them? Drawing it, or just mentally fantasizing?
He was mentally fantasizing about it, and then he started to take those fantasies and fuck around in his shop class, creating devices that he would fantasize using on these helpless women in high school, 16 years old.
Crazy.
After graduating high school in 1973, 19-year-old Cameron was determined to find a woman, willing or otherwise, who would participate in his dark and disturbing role-playing fantasies, allowing him to act out the sinister scenarios that, hitherto, had only existed in his thoughts. Noise. Enter 15-year-old 9th grade student, Janice. True to his psychopathic nature, Cameron expertly manipulated this young and vulnerable teenage girl and said all the right things to gain her trust and make her feel safe. When they began dating, Cameron presented himself as the perfect gentleman. whisking her away on long romantic drives, followed by dinner and a movie. He introduced her to new adventures too, like water skiing and snow skiing, and ignited a sense of freedom and excitement that Janice had never known before. Because like Cameron, Janice didn't come from a wealthy family, and she'd recently moved to the area from San Jose. She lived in a little home with her 3 older siblings, a blue-collar father who worked very long hours and was rarely around, and a very strict, domineering mother. As a child, Janice struggled with epilepsy and grew convinced that her father believed that she was possessed by demons and therefore kept his distance literally and emotionally. And when it came to her mother, Janice felt rejected and unloved and was often at the receiving end of vitriol and insults.
Where are they living again? Sorry, where did they grow up?
San Jose, but then they moved to Red Bluff, California, where she met Cameron.
Got it, okay.
These experiences, though, with her parents fostered a deep fear of rejection in Janice, and she developed a tendency to become excessively clingy with any boy who showed her attention.
Oh, yeah.
So relatable. So when it came to Cameron and his newly introduced sexual appetite, Janice submitted to whatever he proposed, whether she wanted to or not. For example, when Cameron decided to drive Janice to the mountains, strip her naked, and hang her from a tree with leather handcuffs, as uncomfortable and scared as this made Janice, she did not, or she could not, say no.
Wow.
Plus, the love and the comfort that Cameron provided Janice after untying her from the tree somehow felt like the pain and humiliation was worth it for her.
Yeah, people create pain so they can relieve it. That's like classic.
Yes, it is.
Abuser.
Domestic abuse behavior.
I wanted to see where Red Bluff was.
Yeah.
All the way up north.
Yeah.
California. And not coastal. It's like in a part of California I think nobody ever thinks about, probably.
Shout out to those who live in Red Bluff. We see you.
Yeah.
I see you.
I don't.
So even when Cameron began to beat and photograph Janice during their now regular sexually violent and abusive encounters, she continued to comply. And that's in air quotes because remember, she was only 15 years old and Cameron was 19.
Yeah.
So in terms of her ability to resist or make informed choices, the statutory rape dynamic was at play here, which severely skewed the power balance and made Janice's compliance a tragic consequence of her youth and Cameron's predatory manipulation.
And that would be even outside of Romeo and Juliet laws that did not exist back then, right? What is it, 2 years or 3 years?
Yeah, and also that's typically if they started dating when both were minors, if I recall correctly. And then one ages out, if you will.
Yeah.
That's when the Romeo and Juliet law would potentially apply.
Can you imagine like you're 17 dating a 16-year-old and then all of a sudden you turn 18 and you're like, I'm a criminal.
Oh, that happened to me. I told you the story. Yeah.
I remember.
I was 15. My boyfriend turned 18 and I heard his mother like whisper, like whispering at him. Her father's a lawyer.
I remember that part.
Yeah.
I remember that. Yeah.
We'd been dating for like a year already by that point, but yeah.
Yeah.
So after about a year and a half of Janice and Cameron dating, something happened that wound up not only changing their relationship, but also escalated the sexual violence.
Snap, crackle, pop,
quiz. What happened? A, Cameron left Janice hanging from the tree for 50 minutes.
This guy fucking sucks.
Which led to gangrene and the amputation of her right hand, which excited Cameron on a whole new level. B, Janice, now 16, faked a pregnancy to force Cameron into marrying her.
Okay.
C, Janice attempted to leave Cameron.
Great job.
Yeah.
On this one. B?
Yes.
The least likely choice.
Okay, yeah. Janice convinced Cameron that she was pregnant. She faked it. She dropped out of high school and on January 18th, 1975, married Cameron in Reno, Nevada under the pretense, again, of being pregnant and with her father's approval.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
And she's how old? 16 at this time?
Yes.
So, I guess she didn't think ahead to what was going to happen at the end of 9 months when she told that lie.
No, she was only thinking about trapping him into a marriage, which I find interesting. I just think it speaks volumes, obviously, in terms of the psychology of what's going on here because he's hurting her and she's afraid of him.
Leaving. Oh my God.
Well, she's afraid of him leaving, but she's afraid of him. He's sexually abusing her.
Yeah.
But at the same time, she's so under thumb that the idea of him leaving her overpowers that.
She's fully entrenched in his. So I'm going to tell you the saddest story I've ever heard in a meeting.
Okay.
It's a guy who was speaking. He was missing a leg, used a cane to walk at this point. And back when he was drinking and homeless, he was in a wheelchair, right? So he's under a bridge one night doing fucking drugs with his buddy, his friend.
Yeah.
And the friend just turns on him and starts beating the shit out of him, dumps him out of his wheelchair and starts kicking him and tells him he's leaving, and he's begging him not to leave. Like, don't leave. Because that was the
He's
one.
all I got type thing.
Yeah, that's it. I mean, I get it. I totally
It's the
get
devil
it.
you know versus the devil you don't.
It's also like people are, I don't care what anybody says, we are built to bring things into our identity that either improve it, don't improve it, whatever, things, people, situations, ideas, whatever. And when you don't have anything, like Brian Regan has a great bit about a child watching its balloon float away.
It's so sad when that happens. Still.
And an adult being like, oh, wow, big deal.
Oh, no, I don't. I'm devastated. It's such a final feeling. Like, it's over.
Done. And he's like, how would you feel if your wallet and cell phone just floated out of your pocket and started going into the air away from you?
That's brilliant.
You'd be like, fuck.
You get it back.
Yeah, that's all the child has is a balloon.
Oh.
So all she has in this situation is someone who's being horrible to her, but at least he's there.
Someone.
Yeah.
If Janice thought that the marriage and the idea of her being pregnant would somehow soften Cameron, she was sorely mistaken.
Yeah.
Because the opposite happened. During sex, Cameron now began choking Janice until she passed out. He would hold a knife against her trembling throat while asking her if she wanted to die. He began to openly indulge in fantasies about ways to kill her, becoming intensely aroused by the idea of crucifixion, a form of execution that, as discussed in our previous Psychopedia episode, is notorious for its excruciating pain, prolonged suffering, and profound humiliation.
Yeah.
He began gagging Janice and forcing her to wear an army surplus gas mask with its eyes and ear holes taped over so that she'd undergo sensory deprivation as he sexually abused her. As if the situation weren't horrific enough, Cameron began to openly fantasize about introducing a third person into the bedroom. Seeing that Janice wasn't exactly into this idea, Cameron warmed her up to it by suggesting that an extra person would actually lessen the sexual demands on her, especially if that extra person was, quote, a girl who couldn't say no.
Okay.
Fuck you.
Yeah.
So Janice agreed under two conditions. One, that Cameron actually give her a baby. And two, that Cameron not have sexual intercourse with this extra girl who couldn't say no.
Okay.
Because sexual intercourse, aka rape, was to be reserved for her and her only.
Wow. There's so much going on.
There's a lot. I told you. And part one is very much just laying out what happened. Part two, we're going to analyze the fuck out of it.
Oh, that's going to be fun.
Yeah. Cameron agreed to both of Janice's conditions as long as the extra person, say it with me now, was a kidnapped girl who couldn't say no.
Okay.
2 years later, after this agreement was made, after the birth of their daughter in the fall of 1976, so Cameron carried through with his end of the bargain, Cameron and Janice put their twisted agreement into action. Cameron began by scouting potential victims, photographing several girls he considered, and making his horrifying move on the afternoon of May 19th, 1977, when he saw a 20-year-old woman clad in a plaid wool Pendleton jacket, jeans, and earth shoes hitchhiking on the shoulder of Interstate 5. Which brings us to the top of the episode. Now, with a quote-unquote girl who couldn't say no trapped inside of a head box in the backseat of their car, completely encased, deprived of all sensory input, and overwhelmed with terror, Cameron and Janice drove back to their home at 1140 Oak Street in Red Bluff, California. The house, with its 2 bedrooms and, most importantly, small, dark basement, was about to become the stage for unspeakable horrors. Because in that basement, prior to Colleen's arrival, Cameron had meticulously prepared for his sadistic rituals. He constructed a wooden rack equipped with eye hooks at each corner so that he could easily secure custom-made leather cuffs to, quote-unquote, stake out his victim. He also installed hooks in the ceiling beam from which to hang his victim and fashioned what Colleen Stan would come to know and dread as the head box. On the night of Colleen's abduction, Cameron and Janice temporarily removed the head box to allow Colleen, who's now back at their house, despite her complete loss of appetite, to eat a dinner of potatoes au gratin with a glass of water, all while her hands and ankles remained bound. After the meal that she was unable to eat, she was permitted to use a green plastic bedpan in front of them before the head box was reinstated.
Speaking of potatoes au gratin, okay?
Yeah.
Is there a meal from your childhood that you remember absolutely fucking hating?
Oh, hating? I thought you were going to say loving, and I was really excited to tell you about my mother's Frosted Flakes chicken.
Yeah, I know about that.
Okay. I made it for you.
Yes.
Okay. Absolutely hate. Yes. Chicken on the bone.
Okay, I thought you were going to say something else. Mine is chicken divan.
What the fuck is that?
The grossest combination of food you could possibly imagine. It's chicken, rice, cream of mushroom soup.
Oh, yum.
Ugh. Mushrooms, and then something, and maybe asparagus, and then crushed up potato chips on top of it.
Okay.
I remember smelling that in my home as a child. Mom, I'm sorry. I know you worked hard on it, but it was fucking disgusting. And it's still, the thought of the smell makes me a little, ugh. I learned this when being at a restaurant and learning how they made lobster bisque soup.
Oh, you mean by killing the lobster when he's still alive, like boiling? Well, obviously, if you're killing something that's still alive, but like it's very painful for the lobster.
First of all, they wait till the lobsters are dead to kill them.
They do?
Second of all,
shut up.
the lobster bisque gets, and the lobster itself gets all of its flavor from the shell. So it's the same thing with the bone.
Oh, that's why when you make chicken soup, you make it chicken on the bone.
Yeah.
Because that's where the flavor comes from?
That's why bone-in steak tastes a little bit better. I'm not a fan of bone-in anything either, just because of what comes
she said.
with it. Wow. An audience of one.
The next day, Colleen was taken upstairs for her second meal, which consisted of 2 large egg sandwiches and a glass of water. Now, her nerves continued to make eating difficult, as you can imagine, which meant that she could only manage to eat half a sandwich, which was a quarter of what was offered to her. Mm-hmm. And this was unacceptable behavior to Cameron. He needed to enforce the lesson that Colleen was to eat every morsel of food served and thank him with her body for the privilege. Oh. So as punishment for not finishing her food, Cameron dragged Colleen back down into the basement, hung her from the ceiling beam, and beat her with a bullwhip until she lost consciousness.
So either you eat or you don't. If you eat, you're getting raped. If you don't eat, you're getting beaten. This guy is a fucking...
It's all going to happen, and she's sadly going to come to learn. It's all going to happen, regardless of her behavior. When she came to, Cameron placed the uneaten sandwiches before her and asked, "Now do you want to finish?"
Yeah, I'm so hungry right now.
He then locked Colleen back into the head box, suspended her from the ceiling, and left her to hang, spread eagle and naked, enduring excruciating pain, terror, and humiliation for 10 hours. And so began Colleen Stan's new, nightmarish existence, which was marked by 1 meal a day, complete immobilization, brutal beatings, which were often photographed, and relentless psychological torment.
This is so fucked up.
And by the way, that time that they let her upstairs to eat, that was it. After that, all food was given to her while she was in that basement, locked up, barely able to move. As Colleen's sense of time evaporated, she could no longer discern if she'd been imprisoned for days, weeks, or months. The only sounds that occasionally pierced her soundproof headbox were the disturbing noises of Cameron and Janice having sex with each other immediately following her torture sessions, often underneath her feet as she continued to hang.
And the baby's where?
Exactly. The baby's wherever the baby is. You know what I mean? It's just such an afterthought. It's insane.
If you're that baby right now, I hope you're okay.
Yeah. Well, rumor has it child, ultimately children, wound up doing okay somehow.
Okay.
As Colleen spent endless hours and days confined in the box in the basement, she retreated into her own thoughts, which became her sole form of companionship. She immersed herself in daydreams of the freedom she hoped to regain and reminisced about her largely happy childhood as the eldest of 3 girls raised by divorced parents. Although not a strong student, Colleen had a passion for poetry. She left high school at 16 and married a 22-year-old man named Tom Stan.
Wait, who?
Colleen. I'm giving you a little bit of history on Colleen.
Oh, wait, Colleen, the one who's the victim.
Yes.
Okay, I was thinking about something else, and I'm just going to say it. Watching Homeland last night, I too am sick of her face now.
Oh, up here. Thank you.
I saw it last night. She was like,
thank you. I can do it so well. You ready?
yeah. Oh, that's not that good.
What? That is brilliant. Give me a fucking Oscar.
She's like,
oh, okay. Yeah, you're right. Well, depends on what the news is that she's receiving.
She's always on the verge of tears. And like for the first 60 hours of the show, it was great. 70 hours even.
No, it's too much.
Yeah.
She's a fantastic actress. It's too much.
It's too much, yeah.
So Colleen left high school at 16 and she married a 22-year-old man named Tom Stan in 1973, but the marriage lasted only 1 year. And after that, she lived on the fringes of society and earned a meager income from collecting and selling moss, which is a niche profession, I feel like.
Is moss used for something, I guess?
I feel like we know better than I would.
I'll make something up.
Okay.
In a couple of minutes.
Cool.
Yeah.
Eventually, Colleen found her way and moved in with her friend Alice Walsh, Alice's husband Bob, and their 2-year-old son. But now, the world outside the 4 closed-in walls of her head box felt like a distant, fading memory. The life she once knew seemed to exist in another reality, an unreachable eon away. And people on the outside had become equally disturbed by Colleen's disappearance.
Sure.
She vanished without a trace and uncharacteristically left all of her loved ones in deep worry. Her roommate, Alice, took the crucial step of contacting the Eugene Police Department in Oregon to report Colleen missing and to explain that she'd last been seen hitchhiking. Because if you remember, Alice is the one who dropped her off on the side of the road.
Yeah.
But despite filling out a missing person report, the case drew no significant action or attention from law enforcement. So keep in mind that this was the 1970s, an era defined by its pervasive sense of fear and uncertainty. So like the 60s, I feel like was very free love, free spirit, whatever. The 70s was a little bit different.
The 70s was free love, free spirit.
No.
Because it was 68, 69 is when all that started.
Yeah, but it was a time when the streets of America, right? I mean, I wasn't alive, you were haunted.
I wasn't born in the 70s.
Oh my God, you were. I always say that about you.
I think you're fucking with me, but at 1980.
No, Dave was 1978. My brother was 1978.
They're older than I am.
know, but I forget that. You just seem wise beyond your years.
Oh, nice catch.
So this was a time when the streets of America were haunted by notorious little serial killers like Ted Bundy, whose brutal crimes spanned several states, Son of Sam, and the Zodiac Killer, whose elusive identity and taunting letters created widespread terror.
But I feel like every decade had that because the 80s were full of fear and panic too, and the 90s.
The public's anxiety was high.
Yeah.
This is according to my research. I wouldn't know, neither would you.
And there's people who will tell you that they were 7 in 1978 and be like, my childhood was so good. I felt so free and safe.
True.
Yeah.
True. But cases like Colleen's, which lacked immediate evidence or leads, often fell through the cracks amid the widespread chaos and just dread of the era.
Yeah, too much.
Right. Meanwhile, as fear and uncertainty gripped the nation, Colleen's plight unfolded in a chilling parallel in her own world. And each day proved to be more violent, vicious, and sadistically creative than the one before. Just 10 days into her abduction, Colleen could suddenly hear the relentless clamor of power tools echoing around her. It felt as if she were a helpless specter to her own impending doom. Fully aware that Cameron Hooker was in the midst of constructing his next sadistic torture device. This experience was like a prisoner in a tower hearing the construction of a gallows from within their cell, a grim prelude to their imminent demise. Colleen was introduced at that point to an insulated wooden box measuring 6.5 feet long by 3 feet high. She was then thrust into this nightmarish confinement contraption in which she was unable to move, sit up, roll over, or change positions. It was like a soundproof, escape-proof coffin. Then, before sealing the box with Colleen inside of it, Cameron first wrapped a heavy chain around her neck and secured it to wrist chains that were fastened to her ankles. He then inserted earplugs into her ears, blindfolded her, and padlocked the box shut. In that moment, she was, for all intents and purposes, buried alive.
That's what I was thinking like.
Yeah. And for the next 3,000,024 moments, if moments are marked by seconds, she remained in that state because 5 weeks had now passed since Colleen's abduction, and she was being forced to spend 23 hours a day, every day, inside that pitch black, silent coffin.
You said 3,024,024. Is it like 3,000,024? Because that's very strange.
3, 024, comma.
Oh, 3,024,000.
Did I say it wrong?
Yeah, but it's okay.
Shocking.
It just, for me, like, I don't know. Listen, you know me at this point. I got hung up on something. I was picturing 3 and then 0,000,000,000 and then 24.
But here's what I love when you get hung up on these things.
Yeah.
Like, you're listening.
Oh, yeah.
So I like that.
I'm fully invested in this case. Right?
I mean,
and this is part one.
This is just part one. I'm just honestly laying the foundation, if you can believe it. So think about that, okay? 23 hours a day, chained up inside of a coffin with earplugs and a blindfold, complete sensory deprivation.
I wonder if you could like will yourself to death in that time.
You know, I actually thought about that. I actually thought, because I know in cases where people are, you know, really, really sick and in hospice on their deathbed, and they say that they can wait for all of their relatives to arrive before they like allow themselves to die. I actually had the same thought. I was crying so much reading this book, and I actually thought about that. I was like, she's so fucking strong, this woman. I honestly think a couple days into it, I would just will myself to just not wake up.
You might also just be gone.
But I don't know, though. I don't know, because the human will to survive is so fucking powerful.
But you might not have a will to exert because your brain is just completely not yours.
Do you know that there's a study that just came out? They've identified a part of the brain associated that can be looked at, studied, and measured with one's will to survive.
Oh, yeah. Andrew Huberman.
Oh, yeah. You and Dave, right? Same person. Yeah. He was telling me all about it. It's so fascinating.
Yeah.
Of course, I had 1,000 things to go up against what he was telling me. And Dave's like, can you just
be cool for a second?
Let me tell you about this podcast.
Wait. Hold on a second. You can fucking observe somebody's will to live. Let me see the data on that. As if I'll know anything I'm looking at.
So at this point, 5 weeks into her captivity, Colleen hadn't showered, brushed her teeth, used a toilet, stood up, or seen the light of day for 5 weeks straight. When she ate her 1 meal per day, which typically consisted of whatever scraps remained from Cameron and Janice's dinner, she did so sitting up in the box, still blindfolded and chained.
Wait, hold on a second. How?
They took the lid off the box. She physically sat up in this coffin.
Okay.
Ate the scraps. Her hands were cuffed.
Yeah.
She ate and then lied back.
Off?
No, blindfold was on. Earplugs were in.
Yeah. Either I'm going to try and will myself to death or I'm going to try and kill them because
I know.
In my mind, who knows?
Exactly,
you know what I mean?
Exactly. Colleen's physical deterioration was stark, as you can imagine.
Sure.
Her weight plummeted, her hair thinned and fell out, and her skin turned pale and sickly, which was nothing compared to this poor woman's psychological deterioration. And the research is clear on this. Solitary confinement is extremely damaging, and it causes long-term lasting harm.
Oh, yeah.
According to a 2023 report published by Solitary Watch and the Unlock the Box campaign, solitary confinement induces profound and lasting changes in both brain function and personality.
Yeah.
In these cases, significant shrinkage can occur in the hippocampus, which is a region of the brain that is critical for memory and learning. Then there are the profound psychological and behavioral impacts of social deprivation. When individuals are subjected to solitary confinement, their innate social nature leads to what is termed social pain, a form of emotional suffering that parallels the intensity of physical pain emerging from exclusion, rejection, or isolation.
Wow.
And this type of pain can often surpass physical discomfort in its endurance, as people may obsess over their experiences for months or even years, exacerbating their emotional turmoil and deepening their suffering.
Well, physical pain is just chemicals being released or synapses happening. It's, emotional pain is hormones. Of course, they could be as painful.
Yeah.
And
in addition to being chronically deprived of visual, auditory, and social stimuli, victims of solitary confinement, like Colleen, are also denied opportunities, obviously, for intellectual stimulation.
Yeah.
In Colleen's case, all forms of extracellular programming, such as work or education, was forbidden. She couldn't even read a book. She couldn't look out a window. She couldn't write a note. Every avenue for mental engagement was stripped away, which in essence became an assault on her mind.
Mm-hmm.
Now, research on the effects of such extreme deprivation is limited due to ethical concerns, obviously, but one notable study conducted at McGill University in 1951.
It
Fuck you, man.
I thought it was like Machiavelli or something.
In 1951, found that participants exhibited disturbing symptoms such as hallucinations, impaired cognitive function, diminished ability in simple arithmetic and word associations, obsessive behavior, and abnormal emotional responses.
Yeah.
According to solitarywatch.org, also, additional studies indicate that EEG frequency can decrease in as little as 1 week in deprivation environments. More recent research involving rats attempted to simulate solitary confinement conditions by contrasting two environments. I feel like testing on rats is usually your wheelhouse. You talked about it. Remember you talked about the rats drowning?
Once.
It really stuck with me.
You're really familiar with rat stuff.
No, you've done other things too.
You were the one who called me Ratatouille. You're obsessed with rats, not me.
I am obsessed with Ratatouille. He is so cute.
Such a good cook. Got him.
I want to talk about the research involving rats.
Okay.
All right. So they set up two contrasting environments, one spacious and enriched with social and physical stimuli, and the other small, barren, and isolative. After a month in the deprived environment, scans revealed that the neurons of the isolated rats had decreased in volume by 20%. Furthermore, rats in these stark conditions exhibited fewer neural connections and a thinner cerebral cortex. Even brief periods, just 4 days. What?
Who's the rat queen now?
I'm proud of it.
Yeah.
I actually make a really good rat face. Oh my God, so do you. My twin sister and I have rat face competitions more than we should.
Sounds like a fun time.
We know how to have fun.
Okay.
Even brief periods, just 4 days in a deprived environment, can significantly alter the cortex's dimensions and functionality, affecting its capacity to process the world, which that's serious.
Yeah.
So according to this journalist, Shruti Navendran, about the study, quote, "These were stunning discoveries. The cerebral cortex, what we refer to as gray matter, is the part of the brain that makes us most human."
Yeah.
So imagine that being withered away.
Which kind of makes it seem like maybe they shouldn't be doing experiments on rats if their cerebral cortex became thinner. Like if they have the ability to think, process, observe, feel.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Animal testing?
Yeah.
Horrific. All right, pop quiz.
Okay.
What is the longest someone has served in solitary confinement? A, 14 years. B, 23 years. C, 45 years.
What was the first one?
14.
14, 23, 45?
Mm-hmm.
45?
Yeah.
It's a fucking long time. Well, on my quick search, I saw one that said somebody served for 29. So
Okay, and that wasn't enough.
23. Yeah.
Okay. British prisoner Robert Maudsley, a.k.a. Hannibal the Cannibal,
Oh.
who was thought to be the longest-serving inmate in Britain, is believed to have been in continuous isolation since 1978. That's 16,000 consecutive days in solitary confinement.
Oh, it's all blends together.
Yeah,
Sure.
he's believed to have murdered another inmate, a pedophile, in prison, and then ate some of his brain with a spoon. So, little fun fact for you. So as the days of torment dragged on for poor Colleen, Cameron's cruel routine showed no signs of reprieve. However, 3 months into her captivity, he did decide that it was finally time to bathe his victim. And the only reason Cameron decided to address Colleen's hygiene was because she'd gotten her period inside of the box, and he couldn't ignore that. Not for any concern about her health or comfort or dignity, but rather for the potential risk of infection and the hassle of having to deal with that.
Yeah.
But true to his sadistic form, rather than allowing Colleen to simply wash normally and, God forbid, with any semblance of privacy or dignity, Cameron chose to hogtie her and nearly drown her in the bathwater 24 separate times.
Oh my God.
While photographing each near-death moment for his personal pleasure. Janice was also instructed to comb what was left of Colleen's hair, but wound up cutting most of it off because it just became too matted to manage. Now, let's talk about Janice here for a moment.
Yeah.
By the end of the summer, the mounting strain of what was happening in her own home, under her nose, and at the hands of her husband had become too much for her to bear. But rather than releasing Colleen or contacting the authorities, Janice instead chose to move herself out of that house of horrors from Monday through Friday of each week, and then she'd come back on the weekends. Her feelings were a tangled mess of guilt, jealousy, and resentment, intensified by Cameron's favoritism of their hostage. And she couldn't deal with it anymore. Despite her fears of Cameron's threats, as he'd warned Janice that he would kill her if she ever left, Janice lived with her sister for most of the week. But then this arrangement crumbled. It only lasted for a few months, and she wound up moving back home full time. 5 months into Colleen's nightmarish captivity in November 1977, Cameron decided to begin exploiting her for labor. By the way, we come back to Janice, but I just wanted to plant the seed that she did try to leave for a little bit and then wound up coming back.
Wow.
So in 1977, now November, Cameron transferred Colleen from that claustrophobic coffin-like box into a standing box. And for the first time in nearly half a year, Colleen's eyes were exposed to the light, which felt blinding.
Oh my God. For the first time in how long, you said?
5 months.
Boy.
At her feet in the standing box, which he situated beneath the staircase, sat a large sack of walnuts. As Cameron slammed and locked the door of this latest confinement contraption, he instructed Colleen to shell the nuts so that he could sell them at a flea market in San Jose. Colleen worked all through the night, grateful for the task and hopeful that she would be granted the gift of sight moving forward, as well as the opportunity to keep busy. But when morning came, sadly, she was blindfolded once more, shackled, and suspended from the ceiling naked, a cruel reminder of what her true purpose was to Cameron. Then she was returned to the cramped, lie-down box, blindfolded, and locked in. The torture became more violent, more sadistic at this stage of her captivity.
More?
Yep. Sometimes as Colleen hung by her wrists from the ceiling, Cameron would hold a heat lamp next up against her exposed genitals until her flesh burned and blistered.
Oh my God.
Other times he'd touch her with live electrical wires. Sometimes he forced his penis into her mouth while she hung upside down. It was always the dealer's choice, and Colleen was always on the losing end. 251 days into her hellish abduction, Cameron even forced Colleen to sign a slavery contract that he lifted from which of the following sources?
Just to say, 251 days in, you're not even 15% into the captivity.
I know.
Oh my God. Okay. So he lifted a slavery contract from?
From a replica of a vintage torture manual found in the gift shop at the Tehama County Museum.
Okay.
B, an underground S&M club in Seattle called The Wet Spot. C, a bondage porno mag.
B.
No.
A.
Nope. Made those two up.
Weird. C.
Yes.
A bondage porno mag?
Mm-hmm.
Like ordered it from the back or something?
No, he didn't have to order it. It was there.
Oh, okay.
Right? So he had all of these like porno mags and stuff. And I think he got a lot of his ideas from these magazines.
Yeah.
So due to Cameron's dyslexia, he had Janice retype the contract to ensure that all of their names were included. And the document began with the following declaration. Quote, this indenture, made the 25th of January in the year of our Lord, 1978, hereafter referred to as slave, and Michael Powers, which was Cameron's alias, hereafter referred to as master, witness, being Janice, hereafter referred to as ma'am, and slave K, just the initial K, which was Colleen's new slave name, just a single initial and a deliberate move to further erase her identity, diminish whatever individuality remained, and sever her connection to the life she once knew before her abduction. The contract went on to state, the slave will grant the master all of her body and the entirety of her soul, and shall immediately, diligently, and enthusiastically comply with and submit her full being to any and all directions or desires of master or his assigns, which he or they may express by word, signal, action, or any other means. She shall at all times address him only as sir or master. She shall constantly maintain her female body parts in such circumstances as will demonstrate and ensure that they are fully open to him. In particular, she shall never cross her legs in his presence, shall wear no undergarments at any time, and shall cover no part of her body with apparel or material of any description except when the act of doing so and design of the item are expressly approved by him, capital H. She shall preserve her female body parts for the exclusive use of him and his assigns, which use shall be the sole source of her pleasures, and she shall engage in no self-gratification nor any physical contact with any others.
Does he think she's in there masturbating in the box?
Who the fuck knows? The contract continued to elaborate in archaic language, almost incomprehensible in its formality.
We got it from a porno mag.
Yeah. Notoriously smart.
Yeah.
But to summarize the essence of the rest of the contract, it detailed the terms of Colleen's subjugation and the roles of those involved, laying out the power dynamics and obligations in a manner that echoed the oppressive and dehumanizing nature of Cameron's control. It was just another mechanism for him to control her.
Was there a time on it? Like a time
Indefinitely.
limit? Okay.
Now, and this is important, Colleen was led to believe that the contract was part of a genuine American sex slave operation orchestrated by an underground organization called the Company. This supposed entity, according to Cameron, the Company, had eyes and ears everywhere and was perpetually monitoring Colleen's every move. The omnipresence of the Company successfully instilled in Colleen a paralyzing fear. And that was, if she dared to escape or failed to ever comply with the contract's demands, she would be killed instantly. As Colleen grappled with the crushing weight of her now even more fucked up situation, her despair spiraled to new depths.
The Company.
Yet, in a striking act of defiance and a resolute effort to cling to some semblance of who she was as a person, Colleen mustered the strength to tell Cameron that she wouldn't sign the contract because according to the terms of the contract, she would have to give up her soul to him. And that she refused to do. And I fucking love this. I love it. It's like that little show of force. It's like a little victory in this otherwise horrific war that she's epically losing. You know what I mean? This little small victory. I mean, it wasn't a victory for long, unfortunately, because Cameron had a zero tolerance policy for defiance on any level. So he told Colleen that if she didn't sign the contract, he'd sign it for her and make her wish that she had.
Or perceived defiance.
Right.
Yeah.
He then gave her verbal consent that God could keep her soul, but he had everything else. And with that, Colleen reluctantly signed her name on the line marked Forever Slave, effectively extinguishing any remaining flicker of hope she might have had for her freedom. Upon signing, Cameron presented Colleen with the gift of a new gold metallic dog collar emblazoned with a gold leaf. He fastened it tightly around her neck, the cold metal biting into her skin and eventually tarnishing and turning her skin green. But it had become a symbol of Colleen's perpetual torment and subjugation, a constant degrading reminding of her captivity. Not that she needed one.
Yeah.
So at this point, Janice, aka Ma'am, decided to test Cameron's loyalty to her by finally giving him permission to have sex with his sex slave.
Wow.
AKA to rape Colleen.
Yeah.
Expecting Cameron to refuse, Janice was both shocked and devastated when he eagerly complied. Once Janice gave him the green light, Cameron immediately dragged Colleen into their bedroom where he chained her, spread eagle on the bed, completely naked, and raped her while simultaneously touching and kissing Janice, who was lying down on the other side of him. Overcome with horror, jealousy, and rage, Janice fled to the bathroom and began to retch. But she did nothing to stop her husband from raping an innocent woman, which raises the crucial question that we touched upon a little bit earlier. Why? If Janice was so distressed by what she was witnessing and she was aware that it was wrong, why did she not intervene?
Yeah. But, yeah.
First of all, Janice Hooker, for all of her faults, was also a victim of Cameron Hooker.
Exactly.
And we said that. She was entangled in a web of manipulation and control that Cameron expertly wove, exploiting her vulnerabilities and fears from the time she was 15. Her participation in the abuses against Colleen was not merely a matter of consent, but a result of deep psychological coercion and the fear of severe repercussions. Janice was rendered both a perpetrator and a deeply damaged victim in her own right. Understanding her actions requires acknowledging that she too had a distorted ability, if not a near total inability, to act independently of Cameron's influence. Now, Janice's dynamic with Cameron was both clear and complex. Cameron was not a typical domestic abuser in that he was a sexual sadist, which is an exceptionally rare and dangerous breed of human whose predatory nature went far beyond conventional patterns of abuse. Mm-hmm. So we're going to look at the insights of FBI profiler Roy Hazelwood. We've talked about Roy before, a leading expert in sexual predator profiling. So Hazelwood, in collaboration with Ann Burgess, who we've also talked about, she's a distinguished psychiatric nurse and like an authority on trauma. They conducted a study on female accomplices of sexual sadists, which is like such a niche industry. So their research illuminated the following. In these scenarios, the male's sadistic fantasies often become a shared obsession for his partner. In heterosexual cases involving female accomplices, the man's desires typically dominate both individuals to create a perverse unity in their actions. Hazelwood and Burgess discovered that these men exploit their partner's vulnerabilities and manipulate them into becoming complicit in their dark pursuits. Mm-hmm. This process not only enforces the male's control, but also transforms the female accomplice into what is known as pop quiz.
Okay.
A compliant accomplice.
Okay.
B, an obedient agent.
Obedient agent.
C, a reluctant asset.
C.
No. Made that shit up.
B.
Made that shit up.
Then it must be A.
So fucking smart. A.
Wow.
A compliant accomplice. So in the context of sexual sadism and abuse, in the framework of Roy Hazelwood's research, compliant accomplices are those who, while often being subjected to manipulation or coercion themselves, actively support or participate in the sadistic fantasies and activities of the primary perpetrator. Mm-hmm. Obviously, in this case, Cameron. Janice's role involved a significant degree of personal submission to Cameron's wishes, and she was unable to intervene or stop the abuse, even though she was aware of its wrongfulness. And her compliance was enforced by threats to her own life, threats she had every reason to believe that he would follow through on.
Sure, 100%.
What's interesting, though, this is what I find interesting, and like what makes this scenario more complex than just being like, oh, she's, a compliant accomplice. She still had some capacity to negotiate and to effectively demand a baby and to keep Cameron from sexually assaulting or raping Colleen until she decided he could. Mm-hmm. So in other words, right, like she gave him those two conditions. So it's weird that I'm not a psychologist, but it's weird that she was able to
keep him from doing that.
Yeah, in those scenarios, get her way and negogiate with him.
That he listened.
And the fact that he listened.
Yeah.
So, like, does it call into question at all the nature of her role as a compliant accomplice? You know what I mean?
No, I don't think it does.
Okay.
Because it's only two things. Everything else is his way or the highway.
It's more, maybe it's more rhetorical. Like, you know what I mean? I don't even know if there's an answer.
Yeah.
It's just something I was like grappling with.
Okay.
Okay, anyway. Now that this slave contract was signed and Colleen believed that the company was keeping constant tabs on her, Cameron allowed Colleen out of the basement at night in order to clean the rest of the house, knowing that she wouldn't run. Because Cameron made it clear that if she ever attempted to contact her family with the new privilege of nighttime cleaning freedom, then the company would crucify her, literally nail her to a cross for 5 days and then kill the family member she made contact with. They'd also call in a surgeon to remove her arms and legs without anesthetic, cut out her tongue, blind her with a soldering gun, and destroy her hearing.
How are they going to crucify her with no arms or legs?
Oh, man. I mean, sharp as a tack.
Yeah. By the way, 5 days of crucifixion?
Unlikely.
36 hours. Yeah.
Unlikely.
You're dead.
To enforce Colleen's obedience and ensure that she adhered to the brutal terms of the contract, Cameron began to regularly subject her to what he termed attention drills. He would command, "Attention K," and Colleen, trembling with fear, would strip off all of her clothing, stand on her tippy toes beneath the archway between the living room and the dining room, and wait to be hung by her wrists from the ceiling archway, a reminder of his total control over her entire existence, that even when she thought she was slightly free, she wasn't.
This is very fucked.
So now the year is 1978, and after a full year of unrelenting torment, Cameron did something that he had never done before. He took Colleen outside of their home for the first time. Bound and blindfolded, Colleen was transported in Cameron's truck to a new location, a yellow and brown 64 by 12-foot trailer situated at the end of a dirt and gravel road 5 miles away. Once they arrived at this isolated mobile home, Cameron indicated that this would be their new home, because apparently their previous house was simply too exposed to neighbors and the occasional door-to-door salesperson.
I was going to ask, like, was the house isolated, but it was in a neighborhood?
It was in a neighborhood. Remember, she was in the basement for 23 hours a day.
Yeah.
Eventually, she was allowed upstairs to clean at night. But even still, very shortly after is when he moved them into this mobile home.
Yeah.
Once they got inside of this mobile home, he instructed Colleen to crawl into a newly constructed box that he placed into a hole that he dug beneath his waterbed, which would serve as her new 23-hour-a-day prison. And since there was no longer a basement in which to keep Colleen, Cameron got creative with where he performed his ongoing ritualistic sexual assaults. He constructed a shed in the yard in which he hung, whipped, and raped Colleen on an almost daily basis. During one particularly harrowing session with Colleen's legs flailing helplessly as she swung and writhed in agony, she accidentally kicked Janice, who was now pregnant for a second time, in her swollen belly. And this incident ignited Cameron's rage to a whole new level. After leaving Colleen in the shed alone a little bit to tremble in fear about what her punishment would be for kicking Janice, which I think about that, you know, terrifying that those few moments must have been for her. Cameron finally returned with a book of matches. Then he proceeded to light a match and hold the flame up against Colleen's exposed nipples.
Oh my God.
Incredibly, though, despite the intense pain, Colleen suffered in silence because she refused to cry or scream. It was only when she was stuffed back into that box beneath the waterbed that she allowed herself to break down and sob in the darkness of her solitary confinement. But in that moment, she refused. Cameron also began to experiment with more cruel and unusual inventions he hand-built himself. One such invention was the stretcher, which looked as if it was plucked right out of medieval times. It consisted of 2 heavy boards nailed in a T shape with hooks at the end of each part of the cross. He secured leather cuffs to the top to keep Colleen's arms and hands affixed while locking her ankles to the chain that was wrapped around the bottom. Once she was fastened, Cameron would then start turning the winch that was at the bottom, which would tighten the chain. She essentially was being stretched to a point where all of her muscles, skin, and bones felt like they were on the brink of snapping. And while this contraption did its thing, Cameron would wrap his hands around her neck and choke her until she blacked out. Over and over and over again. And each time she woke up, Cameron would force her to beg for mercy as he forcibly inserted his penis into her mouth. He was sure to indicate to Colleen that he wasn't doing any of this to punish her, but rather because he enjoyed it.
It's worse, obviously.
Much. On one occasion, he forced Colleen to guzzle an entire bottle of cold duck wine before forcing her to perform oral sex on Janice while he watched. After she was finished, Colleen vomited as Cameron and Janice went on to have sex with each other in front of her.
Do you know what cold duck wine is?
No.
Is it a brand?
Oh, yeah. Sorry, I thought you were saying, do you know how gross it is?
No, I have
Yeah,
no idea.
it's a brand.
Okay.
Now, nearly 3 years into her captivity, in the year 1979-ish, it was nearing Colleen's 23rd birthday on December 31st. And surprisingly, Janice asked Colleen what she'd like to receive as a gift. At first, worried that it was some kind of a test, Colleen didn't ask for a thing. But eventually, she got up the nerve to ask Janice for something that wound up down the line, leading to Colleen's eventual freedom. Pop quiz. Okay. What item did Colleen ask for and receive, which wound up indirectly leading to her eventual freedom?
Okay.
A Polaroid camera.
Okay.
B, a kitten. C, a Bible. D, a Walkman.
What was the first one?
A Polaroid camera.
Polaroid, kitten, Bible, Walkman. Polaroid, kitten, Bible, Walkman. Polaroid camera?
Nope.
Obviously. Walkman?
Nope.
Why are you so happy about it?
I'm not. I'm just...
Nope. I don't know. Which one is it? C or
a
D?
Bible.
Okay.
A Bible.
She got the courage up from something, from reading it, or...
Oh, you'll find out.
Okay.
Eventually in July, Colleen was handed a Bible. Suddenly, she was no longer alone in her wooden box, on the rack for 10 days straight, suspended from hooks, or beneath Cameron's disgusting, thrusting body.
Ugh.
For now, she felt an overwhelming presence accompanying her, and that presence was God himself, a force far greater than her own suffering. And this, as you will come to find out in part 2, wound up leading to Colleen's eventual freedom.
Nice.
And that concludes part 1, which lays the foundation and very much paints who Colleen Stan was as a victim.
Yeah.
But part 2 will tell you how Colleen Stan emerged as a triumpher. And we're also going to be getting into a trial, psychological analysis, and much more. Part 2 is fascinating.
Really?
You needed part 1. You needed the foundation. You needed to understand the hell that this poor, poor woman was being forced to endure every single day for years and years and years. I can't even think about it. But that's part 1.
All right. Very good. Thanks for doing all that work. Very detailed, a lot of info. You've established yourself as the rat person in this dynamic.
I have no problem with that.
Okay, good. Yeah, I did a little bit. I don't know why.
Yeah, I don't either, but I'm fine with it.
I love Ratatouille. So anyway, if you made it this far, you're a real one.
Yeah, you are.
You're a real
Can
psycho.
I just say, if you made it this far, I know that was a lot of really heavy, horrible, detailed, horrific information to absorb. And I appreciate you sticking it out. I really do. And I hope you can forgive me for dragging you through that. But it's a necessary evil to understand where this case goes and to really explore like the dark corners of the human psyche that we're going to be exploring in part 2.
Yeah.
I would like to know if you have a tank's titty for us.
Oh, do I have a tank's titty for you?
Let's see it.
I lived
hear
something
it.
very interesting. When we went to London, we went to Stonehenge.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. It was fine.
Okay.
Okay. Almost late. It made us late for our flight. I didn't realize how far it was and how much of a project it was going to be to see it once we got there. But I had converted some of, American currency into pounds, right? So I had these 20-pound bills like, I don't know how many of them, whatever, not like a ton, but enough to like tip or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
So as we're getting ready to go on the plane, I have like 6 of them or 7 of them. And I just started like giving them to people that were in positions of service. I wasn't like shoving it in people's hands, but like, you know, here or there, whatever.
Yeah.
And it just reminded me of like, you can't, you know, this is the death of me being in London. Can't take it with you kind of thing.
Okay.
But like I fully felt it.
What, that you can't take it with you?
It felt good. It kind of reminded me of like, you know, what is important in life.
Yeah.
And that's it. So that was what I learned in London. Oh, also in London, I got a sun shower.
Yeah.
No, it's not golden showers.
I know.
Dave's like, oh,
Dave
golden
and I are
showers.
5 years old. Every time you say sun shower,
Why would a
we're like,
5-year-old know what a golden shower is?
can you cue that outro music now, Tony? Thanks.
Yeah, all right. I hear that outro music coming. Thank you so much for doing all the work. Thank you for listening. I'm Frank Sinatra. We will see you guys at the next episode.
I'm Investigator Slater. Thanks for listening. Bye.
Wow.